Stefon Diggs, member of the Buffalo Bills, taking on the team with whom he made a whole lot of memories playing the Minnesota Vikings this week. And Tua Tagovailoa, who actually got a whole lot of write-in votes this week in the elections down there in Florida. Tells you how people feel about him as he's the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, trying to keep his team hot and stay in the race in the AFC East. Welcome to NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. I am Marcus Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio, and we're going to talk about him, but Josh Allen seems to be the topic of the day on social media. It's kind of a Where's Waldo situation going on.
Yeah, he's active, but he's not out there taking warming up during pregame. I continue to think if he's active, he's gonna play, but it's a complete guessing game as of right now.
Absolutely a guessing game. We'll try to guess along with you and let you know what we know as we get a little further into the show. As always, you can send us your questions on Twitter at NFL Fantasy. We'll answer as many of them as we can here. The rest of them, they ship off to Aaron Tan because he doesn't like lettuce. Green vegetables, man. That's all you got to do. Green vegetables. In the meantime, let's start with the latest injury news. Of course, right at the top of that list is Josh Allen. He is officially active, but as we mentioned, nobody has seen him warming up. Ryan Tannehill active for the Tennessee Titans after dealing with an ankle injury. Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, both ready to go for the Houston Texans. And welcome back, Kenny Golladay. He is active after missing several games with a knee injury. Injuries of note in the late window. Matthew Stafford is questionable as he was in concussion protocol. Kyler Murray, a game-time decision on the other side of that game for the Cardinals. Ezekiel Elliott, a game-time decision with a knee injury, although that is trending in the wrong direction. And Greg Dortch, questionable with a core issue. Of course, I mentioned Tua Tagovailoa getting some love. He and the Dolphins playing some good football right now. Cam Wolfe is on the scene down there in Miami, and he's got more now from that game.
Dolphins receiver Tyreek Hill told the media this week, a lot of people owe Tua Tagovailoa an apology, especially those in the media. We know the Dolphins quarterback got a lot of questions and criticism early on this year. He's responded by playing at an MVP-type pace this year, leading the league in passer rating. He's a guy that's been getting the ball to Tyreek and Jalen at will. All three of those guys, Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle, are must-starts. But keep an eye on the Dolphins' backfield. They traded for Jeff Wilson a week ago. He immediately took a lion's share of the role in the backfield. The Dolphins want to continue to use him as a key back in that role. Raheem Mostert continues to be the speed back. So watch Wilson's role to increase. On the other side of the ball, the Browns are playing the Dolphins pass team that's been the bottom 10 in the league as they dealt with a lot of injuries. So with Jacoby Brissett here, a former Dolphins backup quarterback, there's a potential for a revenge game. So he might be worth streaming today if you're in a quarterback flux situation. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, the receiver, could also be an option for the Browns.
Thank you, Cam. Love him talking about Jacoby Brissett as a streamer because I do like that option this week. Also, you heard apologies for Tua Tagovailoa. I apologize to you, Cam, if I ever suggested you weren't the best dressed reporter at this network.
Oh, easily.
That shirt was fire. Absolutely. But let's talk about this game on the field. One of the things Cam also mentioned, Jeff Wilson, big role last week, talked that maybe that role increases. If that's the case, what are we doing with Raheem Mostert now?
I think as of right now, both of the Dolphins running backs are like flex options. They easily have more upside than that. And with it being a great matchup against the Browns, especially one where if Tua and Hill and Waddle do their thing, they could be playing with the lead in the second half. I think you can get both of those guys in your starting lineup this week.
Definitely going to keep an eye on that because I still like Raheem Mostert. But if that role is shrinking, it's going to become a question in the weeks to come. Josh Allen, as I mentioned, sort of the topic of the morning as we wait for him to get into warm-ups to see if he's going to play today against the Minnesota Vikings. If you have Josh Allen, and we'll talk about the Bills' offense as a whole a little bit later, but if you have Josh Allen, what is your contingency plan right now?
It all depends on your league. Like, I have Josh Allen in a Superflex league, and my only pivot option is John Wolford. I'm just risking it with Josh Allen there. If you have, like, a Fields or a Tua, I think obviously you go in the safer direction. You get away from Josh Allen. But, I mean, Jacoby Brissett would then be, like, another pivot option. Jimmy G. Russell Wilson still available in a lot of NFL.com leagues. But it's just risk and reward. Like, those guys aren't Josh Allen if Josh Allen plays. So it just comes down to that. Hopefully, we got 55 minutes. Hopefully, we find something out. I mean, they'll see him, like, I know he didn't warm up, but, like, he'll be on the field before the game starts if he's playing.
One would hope, right? And you saw I was checking the clock here to see how much time, because it is an early game, so you're going to have to make that decision within the next 50 minutes or so. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on, and we'll do our best to monitor that as we get closer to kickoff. Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray, they are set, or at least their teams are set to play at SoFi Stadium just right over there in later on today. Stafford looking unlikely. He's in concussion protocol. Kyler Murray looking like he's unlikely to play. I mean, you mentioned John Wolford, Colt McCoy. Either of these guys hold any interest for you in fantasy this week?
No, unless you're very desperate. Like, that's a super flex league for me. Any of the names I just said, like Russ, Jimmy G, Jacoby Brissett, even Daniel Jones, I would throw in there. I'd play any of those guys over the two backups here. I think Cooper Kupp is always in play. DeAndre Hopkins is always in play. I would still start Zach Ertz just because tight end. I think James Conner's in play as well. And then after that, you could start to get away from the players in this game.
A lot of depth is going to be lacking if those two quarterbacks cannot start for their respective teams. Ezekiel Elliott right now is questionable, dealing with a knee injury, and we mentioned it does not look good. It's supposedly a game-time decision against the Green Bay Packers. Do you take the chance with Zeke? I mean, he hasn't been great all year long. It seems like this might be just an easy way to sort of pivot away from him today.
Yeah, I would get away from Zeke because, like you said, even if he plays, like if he doesn't score a touchdown, you're very well likely looking at single digits. And either way, Tony Pollard is a must-start option now, I think, especially if Zeke sits. Like, we're talking about top 10, top 5 upside for Tony Pollard. And this is remarkable. Like 3 weeks later, Zeke is still dealing with this knee injury. He finished that game that he got hurt in. I don't know how.
I have no idea how he finished that game, but he absolutely did. But if he's not going to play, obviously, that's a huge boon for Tony Pollard and his potential production this week against a bad Packer run defense. It's time now for Waiver Wire, presented by KFC. We'll take a look at some of the notable players available in 50% or more of NFL.com leagues. Jeff Wilson Jr., who you just heard from Cam Wolfe, could get a bigger role today. Isaiah Pacheco, Chiefs backfield's been hard to figure. Wan'Dale Robinson and Rondale Moore. So we got Wan'Dale and Rondale both out there for fantasy managers. Josh Palmer should get more looks again today with a beat-up Chargers pass-catching group. Michael Gallup, Cole Kmet, and Greg Dulcich if you are in the tight end market there. But let's look at our particular picks, guys who could be waiver wire heroes. Who do you like this week?
If you're in the tight end market, and I know a lot of fantasy managers are because tight ends, Cole Kmet is a name that I think you could grab off the waiver wire and get into your starting lineup today. Cole Kmet's just been ascending as of late. He had a season-high 6 targets last week. He has 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games after not scoring one since late 2020, and over 14 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games against the Lions. He's just a young, talented player in an ascending offense who's getting more volume, and it's a great matchup against the Lions.
Very good matchup for Cole Kmet. Did we mention that you might be in the tight end market? Because if you are, can I offer you a Greg Dulcich, who, since he came off of injured reserve, has stepped into a pretty big role in the Broncos passing game. And I sort of hold this to, like, I go back to my Albert Okwuegbunam takes where I thought he could really be a big part of the Broncos passing game. It hasn't happened, but there's been another young tight end who's done that instead. And so a good matchup against a questionable Titans secondary today. I think he's a guy you want to plug in your lineups, especially if you've been waiting on the Darren Wallers of the world, if you've been waiting on David Njoku and you're just streaming the position, Greg Dulcich is a nice option for you. Time now for 15 for 15, presented by Geico. We're going to talk about some must-starts, and at quarterback, who do you have?
Jalen Hurts going up against the Commanders because he's awesome. Justin Fields, who's been red hot as of late in a great matchup against the Lions. Speaking of red hot, Tua Tagovailoa, who's getting write-in votes, like Marcus said earlier, in Florida. Another good matchup there against Cleveland. Russell Wilson, that's more about the matchup against the Titans. But we've spoken a lot all week about those other quarterbacks. We don't talk about Dak Prescott too much anymore, and he's going up against the Packers right now, and their defense is so banged up. They just, every week, it feels like they're losing one of their best defensive playmakers. So that just makes life easier there for Dak as well. His passing yards and touchdowns and fantasy points have increased in every game this season. He's coming off of his best game of the year where he dropped over 25 fantasy points against the Bears. Again, Dak is a really good quarterback, but I feel like we haven't talked about him too much this season.
Definitely think we take him for granted because he's just so consistent and so steady, even if it's not always spectacular. And sometimes that just gets boring. Taking a look at the must-start running backs for the week, you got I have Raheem Mostert there on this list. You can also make it a slash Jeff Wilson Jr. I just like the matchup against the bad Browns run defense. David Montgomery coming to life, and he gets the Lions. On the flip side, Jamal Williams, well, he gets a shot at the Bears, who have a bad run defense. You can also throw DeAndre Swift into there as well. Tony Pollard we mentioned, especially with no Ezekiel Elliott, bigger role there. But let's go back to the top of the list and Jonathan Taylor. And there's been a whole lot said about the Colts this week with the coaching change and the new play caller and this and that, and the fact that they've just honestly been a bad team for a good chunk of the season. But Jonathan Taylor is back. He is healthy. He's got a great matchup against the Raiders. And in a situation where you got a coach that maybe wants to keep things simple, this could be a week where you see them load up number 28 with touches. So I know it's been frustrating for anybody who spent the number 1 overall pick on Jonathan Taylor. This could be a week that makes you feel a little bit better about that decision. Moving on to the must-start wide receivers. Florio, who do you have?
Christian Kirk going up against the Chiefs. Chris Olave, Mr. Air Yards there, going up against the Steelers. Deebo Samuel, because he's back and healthy, and we're finally going to see that Niners offense at full strength against the Chargers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, because he's awesome and he's going to have a get-right game in one of these weeks. He's going up against the Bears. And then Jerry Jeudy in a very strong matchup against the Tennessee Titans. But Christian Kirk, I don't know if we give him enough love either. Like, this guy's a wide receiver 1 in total points on the year, a wide receiver 2 in fantasy points per game. Last week, he had over 30% of the targets and air yards on the Jaguars, so just insane volume each and every week for him. I know he's been a little bit up and down. That's more about Trevor Lawrence than it is Christian Kirk. And then this is just a game against the Chiefs, Marcus, where I think they're going to be playing from behind. The Jags defense is very banged up, and we know Mahomes can put up points in bunches. If that's the case, we could be looking at a very big volume day for Christian Kirk.
We'll see if Christian Kirk gets back on the upswing this week. That gets us to our must-start tight ends for Week 10, and Tyler Higbee, who I still think even with John Wolford can get some targets, just short intermediate throws to kind of keep your quarterback comfortable. Foster Moreau stays in a big spot with no Darren Waller. Talked about Greg Dulcich just a little bit ago, same with Cole Kmet. Let's focus down there at the bottom on Evan Ingram, because for the most part, he's been a very good tight end fantasy-wise this season. I know he did not have a great week last week, but sort of like what Florio talked about with Christian Kirk, volume could be your friend here. If the Jaguars are indeed playing from behind, that means Trevor Lawrence is going to have to throw the football a little bit more. Can't just rely on Christian Kirk, can't just rely on Travis Etienne, so I think that means some things for Evan Ingram to get some opportunities in this ballgame as well. Of course, as I mentioned at the top of the show, you can send us your questions at NFL Fantasy on Twitter. Let's get to a couple of them right here before the break. This one from Midwest Gal, who wants to know, in a PPR, Jamal Williams or Jonathan Taylor?
A couple of Midwest running backs going at it here. I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor because he's Jonathan Taylor.
He's Jonathan Taylor, and he's not going to be splitting carries. Jamal Williams may be sharing opportunities with DeAndre Swift, so I go Taylor here in this one as well. JChamp21. Well, speaking of DeAndre Swift or Connor at the flex in a full PPR?
With Kyler Murray up in the air, both of these running backs are a little bit volatile. I'll take the upside swing in Swift there.
Gonna definitely take the upside on Swift there. I just think that he gets more touches, definitely gonna get more targets as long as everything's okay with him. So I think I like him a little bit more than James Conner. Time for a break. Hey, look, there's Jamal Williams. Getting his dance on right now.
Most fun guy.
I love that dude. He's so much fun. We'll see what he and his Lions teammates have for the Bears coming up a little bit later on today. And Kenny Pickett getting loose as the Pittsburgh Steelers have a big matchup today. We'll see what's going on with him. But we're going to look at some more wide receiver cornerback matchups. That's coming up next on NFL Fantasy Game Day. Well, we got Russell Wilson. Let's ride. Seeing if the Broncos can maybe put some wins together and maybe stay in this thing in the AFC West. I don't know if that's possible, but maybe make a run at the playoffs. I don't know if that's possible either. But we want Russell Wilson to play well because I'm starting him in a super flex league. So definitely want that. But here's the big news.
There he is.
Josh Allen. Sporting the number 17, jogging out onto the field. He's taking warm-up snaps from the starting center. So it looks like our short regional nightmare is over. Josh Allen is going to play today for the Buffalo Bills against the Minnesota Vikings, so we can all breathe a sigh of relief. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. He is Michael. I am Marcus. Normally, you guys ask us the questions on Twitter at NFL Fantasy, but every now and then we like to ask you a question. And so our poll question today: which wide receiver has the toughest matchup? DeAndre Hopkins against Jalen Ramsey, Stephon Diggs against Pat Pete, Allen Lazard against Trayvon Diggs, and Amari Cooper against Howard. So wait, we got both Diggs brothers on here, Stephon and Trayvon. So there you go. You can go to Twitter, find us at NFL Fantasy, and you too can vote on this poll today. In the meantime, we're going to do a little thing we call Safe or Scary. We're going to take a look at some of these wide receiver corner matchups and let you know how we are feeling about them. So let's just go with some of the ones that we have in our poll here. DeAndre Hopkins against Jalen Ramsey, safe or scary?
I'm going to say the matchup is safe. Like, Ramsey is the best corner on that list, but the thing is, he doesn't move around the field much. So if the Cardinals, this is putting a lot on Cliff Kingsbury. If he did his homework, he would know that, and he would move DeAndre Hopkins around the field. Plus, he's D-Hop. Like, I always start him. I'm more concerned about no Kyler Murray than I am the Ramsey matchup.
I feel like it's just safe because whoever the quarterback is probably going to force feed targets to Hopkins. So maybe Ramsey does get a pick or two, but I still think I'm going to trust DeAndre Hopkins here. Stephon Diggs against Patrick Peterson, the former Viking going against a current Viking right here. Safe or scary for Diggs? Especially now that Josh Allen's playing.
It's safe. Josh Allen's playing. Patrick Peterson's a good cornerback, but he's not what he once was. And Stephon Diggs has been putting corners on skates all year. Like, he's like the separation and how quickly he can get open. He's matching.
I'm definitely going to say safe. I'm not worried about this at all. Stephon Diggs is going to get his opportunities. Josh Allen's playing. We're all good here. We're moving on to the next one. Allen Lazard against Stephon Diggs' brother, Trayvon Diggs. Is this one safe or scary?
This one is scary, and it's only partially because of Diggs. Like, we know Diggs, you can get yardage against him, but he's the one that's going to go for the turnovers. I'm also just more concerned about how thin the Packers are on offense right now, and with help for Allen Lazard, that they may double him. They may just look to take him out and say, hey, have anyone else in the passing game besides Lazard beat us?
This is very scary for me because you talk about Diggs. He's a guy who likes to gamble, and he will give up the big play. But I think when you talk about that pass rush up front, that gives him the ability to go and challenge and be aggressive. And so I think that is going to make things hard for Allen Lazard. So this one very much scary for me. Amari Cooper against Xavier Howard, safe or scary?
I think this is safe. The thing I'm more afraid of is him being on the road because all of Amari Cooper's big games this year have come in Cleveland. But look, Howard, he's a good cornerback in his own right, but the Dolphins secondary has given up a lot of production this year, especially to receivers. And if this is a game where Tua and Tyreek and those guys do their thing, the Browns will probably be throwing late in the game.
I'm saying this is safe based on the volume, sort of like I said with DeAndre Hopkins, that even if the matchup is tough one-on-one, I just think they're going to feed Cooper a lot of targets, and that is going to give him a pretty safe floor. One last one, Chase Claypool, now with the Chicago Bears, taking on the Lions' Jeff Okudah. That's safe or scary?
That is very scary. Okudah has been playing great football this year, and then Claypool, he's still learning this offense. I think at best he's like second or third because Mooney and Kmet are going to take the top two targets probably, I would imagine. And then, the Bears, as well as they're playing, they still only throw the ball like 25 times.
They only throw the ball 20 times a game. They're just not a whole lot of opportunities. And if Claypool is being covered by Okudah, this is scary. You don't have to play Chase Claypool. You've probably survived this long not playing him most of the time, so I think you're going to be okay to get away from this matchup because I would not want to mess with it. Do want to take a break, though. That's a thing we would like to do here. Of course, we got plenty more coming around on NFL Fantasy Game Day. Patrick Mahomes Looks kind of chilly out there. You can see the breath as he's getting ready. Look, he's catching passes. That's something Tom Brady couldn't do today. That's another story.
Or in the Super Bowl.
Or in the Super Bowl. That's another story for another time. Is he trying to cross over? Look at that. Oh, step back. Oh, the fadeaway.
What can he do?
What can he not do? He's like Steph Curry and Patrick Mahomes rolled into one. That's weird. Alvin Kamara. He's been pretty good lately, too. Let's just hope that Andy Dalton keeps feeding him opportunities, feeding him targets. Anyway, we're going to be talking about some sleepers. Kamara's not one of them, but we're going to talk about some sleepers coming up next after this break. Back here on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. Things have just wrapped up over in Munich between the Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In fact, we got some highlights of what went down there at Allianz Stadium. Geno Smith trying to stay hot, keep his team going. Tom Brady trying to back up wins after the come-from-behind victory over the Rams here in the second quarter. A little swing pass across the middle to Julio Jones. And Quintorris does the rest, all the way in from 30-plus yards for the score. Bucs get on the board first. They take a 7-0 lead. Later on in the second quarter, it's Leonard Fournette. Didn't see much of the rushing opportunities. A lot of that went to Rachaad White, but there he takes it in from just a couple yards out, 14-0 Buccaneers. This one, though, the bad side of Lenny. Trick play, everything went wrong. A bad throw, Tom Brady falls down. Tariq Woolen comes away with the interception, having an outstanding rookie season is one. That's not going to go on the Tom Brady legacy highlight reel. I'm just going to put that out there, though. 14-3 Bucs leading third quarter. Geno Smith trying to make some things happen, dancing around, and yeah, that's not going to get it done. The Seahawks fumble the ball away. Tampa's defense holds, keeps them up by a score of 14-3. Fourth quarter, Brady looking to close this one out, has time, swings it over, touchdown. Chris Godwin hauls that one in from a few yards away. 21-3. It seemed at that point it was pretty much a wrap, but the Seahawks come fighting back. Geno Smith fires across the middle, and it's Tyler Lockett that pulls it in for the score. So Seahawks not done quite yet. 21-9 the score. Brady trying to ice this one up, and that's not going to do it. Picked off on his throw over the middle. So the Seahawks still with life, less than 6.5 to go, down 21-9. Defense all fired up. Let's see what Geno Smith can do with it on a 4th and 1. You want to talk about a gutsy throw. Fires it, and a diving catch made by Marquise Goodwin in the corner of the end zone. Huge throw by Geno Smith, a huge catch on 4th down, but it would not be enough. Rachaad White would ice things with this run, sliding down inside the 20-yard line, and that would put that one away for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady excited to get out of Munich with a win. So the Bucs still hanging around there, very much in play to win the NFC South. The Seahawks putting up a fight. They lose, though, 21-16. But Tom Brady, multiple touchdown passes for just the 2nd time this year. It has been not a great year for him, but this was a decent bounce-back week.
Yeah, doubt Tom Brady at your own risk. Like, we've seen this story before. And as down as a year, I know that interception, he was just a few throws away from breaking the NFL record of most consecutive throws without an interception. So even in a bad year, Tom Brady almost breaking records.
Still doing Tom Brady type things. More of your questions, you can send them to us continually at NFL Fantasy. You can even send them to us during the day today. I mean, we may not answer them, but feel free to send them. It makes you feel better. This one wanting to know Josh Allen or Justin Fields, which this is a thinking question right now.
Yeah, I think, like, for me, it depends on what you need. Like, if you need, I don't even know, because both of them bring so much upside. I guess this is a week to just play it safe with Justin Fields if you need, but I don't know. I don't know if I could ever bench Josh Allen.
It's hard to bench Josh Allen, but I think right now there's a little less doubt about Justin Fields because we haven't spent all week focusing on his elbow injury. But Josh Allen playing is a tough one to go away from. Emily wants to know who to play at flex. Is it Miles Sanders? Is it Jamal Williams? Or is it Josh Palmer? Which of those 3 guys would you want?
A couple of days ago, I would have said Jamal Williams, but with the chatter that they want to get DeAndre Swift more involved, I think I just played safe and go Miles Sanders.
I think Sanders is the play. I don't love the matchup, but I think he's the guy with the most upside in that entire group, so I would concur and say Miles Sanders. Time now to monitor some injuries in the early window. Josh Allen, who we saw run out on the field, is active. Ryan Tannehill is expected to start for the Titans. Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins active for the Texans, and Kenny Golladay back in action for the New York Football Giants. Taking a look at some of the late game injuries to monitor. Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray, they'll be facing each other in theory. It's if they play, but both of them are questionable and kind of heading in the wrong direction. Ezekiel Elliott, a game time decision, though it looks unlikely that he will play, and Greg Dortch questionable with a core injury. Time now for Fantasy Insurance presented by Geico, the moves that can make or break a lineup. In short, we are talking some sleepers for the week. So, who are you not sleeping on today?
George Pickens, because he's awesome. Like, he's a very good talent. He's shown flashes of being an alpha wide receiver 1 in this league, and I truly believe that that is who he's going to be. He's been up and down this year. That's more about his quarterback and his offense, but with Chase Claypool now in Chicago, I think that only opens up volume for George Pickens, who remains the Pittsburgh Steelers' best downfield threat. So, especially this week in a matchup against the Saints, who are very good against the run but can be beat through the air, I think we see a lot of George Pickens.
One of my lineups could definitely use a double-digit game from George Pickens, so I'm hoping you're right there. Jacoby Brissett is a guy that I love as a sleeper, and if you were watching earlier, you heard Cam Wolfe talk about how he thinks Jacoby Brissett could be a nice streaming option. Brissett's played pretty well, even though it may not be enough to force his way consistently into your lineup, but I think this is a game where, because of the Dolphins and their explosiveness on offense, it could force Brissett to throw the ball continually. So I think there's a chance for him to put up a decent fantasy number. The last time we saw him, he put up more than 20 fantasy points in a game. That was Week 8 against the Cincinnati Bengals. So I do like his opportunity as a streaming option, or certainly a Superflex 2 QB option today against Miami. We have been talking all morning long about whether Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills and what that potentially could mean as they take on the Minnesota Vikings. Judy Batista is on the scene for that one in Buffalo, and this is what she had to say.
For the Buffalo Bills, for the Buffalo Bills. The big news, of course, is the health of Josh Allen and his right arm. He did not practice on Wednesday and Thursday, but he was a limited participant on Friday. Reporters caught a glimpse of him. He had no wrap on his right arm, and he has been listed as questionable. So the expectation is that he is going to be active and that he will start. Of course, the big question is, can he deliver the ball deep downfield to guys like Stephon Diggs? We will see. On the other side of the field, watch out for Justin Jefferson, the superstar wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, going up against a banged-up Bills secondary.
Thank you, Judy. Of course, we do know now that Allen is going to be on the field. We saw him run on and take some snaps from the starting center, so all things look positive there. But, I mean, he is still banged up. He's still dealing with an elbow injury. So when you look at the rest of the skill position guys, how many of them are you confident in today?
Not as many as normal. Like, I think that Stephon Diggs, no matter who the quarterback is always in play because he's also very good. But outside of that, like, Gabe Davis is just a pure home run swing play at this point in the season, especially with Josh Allen banged up. I would get away from Dawson Knox, Isaiah McKenzie, the other pass catchers there. And I originally had Devin Singletary as a sit this week. I'm changing that because of the Allen injury. I think that he's in play as like a flex option. He doesn't bring the highest floor or ceiling, but I would anticipate a couple more run plays to limit how often Allen throws the ball.
That's my feeling on Singletary, which is why I had him as a sleeper, that maybe they run the football a little bit more. Maybe it means a couple more short throws. You're not going to have Allen loading up and throwing the ball 50, 60 yards down the field with a bad elbow. But Stephon Diggs very much in play. Everybody else, you can probably get away from, at least for this week, just to make sure that everything is okay. 49ers are back off their bye, and this battle station looks like it is fully operational. Christian McCaffrey has another week to get ready. Deebo Samuel's healthy to go with Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. Is there enough? Can Jimmy Garoppolo get the ball out enough? Can Kyle Shanahan scheme up enough for us to get good production from all four of those major weapons?
I'm worried about all four of them. Like, CMC, I think, is always going to get his because whether it be on the ground or through the air, he will be heavily involved, I think. I feel the same way about Deebo Samuel. He is just such a good talent, and he's so dynamic that I think you have to start him each and every week. George Kittle's always in play because he's a tight end, and we know the upside he brings. Most tight ends don't do that. Ayuk is the one that I'm most worried about because it kind of feels like he's the home run hitter now in this offense. Like, he's going to get a couple of targets per game. Is he going to catch the long ball or not? So because of that, I think the other three stay in play, and Ayuk is the one that gets the bench.
Ayuk is the one that worries me the most, although I feel like it could be a trade-off week to week between Ayuk and Kittle. CMC, as you mentioned, is going to get his touches. Deebo Samuel is going to get his touches. The question is, who's going to be the third guy? And I think that's the part that we're going to have a hard time figuring out. But for this week, I think all of them are in play. I think you start all of them until we get an idea of how this offense is going to operate. But there are few teams, if any, that can match the top four weapons that the 49ers offer now with Christian McCaffrey on the roster. We had a poll for you, and you can still vote on it at NFL Fantasy on Twitter. But which wide receiver has the toughest matchup today? Is it DeAndre Hopkins against Jalen Ramsey, Stephon Diggs against Patrick Peterson, Allen Lazard against Trayvon Diggs, or Amari Cooper against Xavier Howard? And right now, it is Nuke Hopkins leading the way with Lazard versus Diggs coming in second. So everybody worried about the Cardinals receiver against the Rams. They're still starting though, right?
Yeah, I think those two have been going at it though for a while now, right? Because they're in the same division here. They were in the same division when
they were in the AFC South together with Nuke in Houston and Jalen Ramsey in Jacksonville. So they are very familiar with one another, these two. So that should be a fun matchup to watch.
Sure, there won't be a lot of chatter going on.
No, not at all. Not at all. Justin Fields has been red hot for both the Chicago Bears and fantasy managers. He will try to stay red hot in the cold today against the Detroit Lions. And just in case that's not enough Justin for you, here's Justin Jefferson. He getting loose with the rest of his Vikings teammates as they get ready to take on the Buffalo Bills. We're going to take a deeper dive into a running back battle with the Browns and the Dolphins. That's next on NFL Fantasy Game Day. Andy Dalton, who has done wonders for Alvin Kamara's fantasy value, getting another start for the Saints today in Pittsburgh as they get ready to take on, well, the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what you do, playing football in Pittsburgh.
Get the Heat Miser mustache going.
You gotta love it. It's just in time for the holidays there. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. I'm Marcus. He is Michael. And we're going to get to some of your questions right here to see what can help you out before we lock your lineups ahead of Week 10. This one from AK. How heavy are you on playing Kyren Williams? Is it worth benching Latavius Murray? Kyren Williams being a popular name this week.
I'm not heavy on sure, pick him up, put him on your bench, stash him, see if he can be something. But that Rams backfield has been so murky this year. I'd rather take the shot on Latavius Murray scoring a touchdown.
I think I rather would too. I mean, Cam Akers is still there. You know, we'll see what happens with, Darrell Henderson, what have you. Ugh, it's all bad, and especially if it ends up with no Matthew Stafford, I don't want
Just
any
gonna
part of it.
load up front.
Absolutely. Russell Wilson or Jimmy G also have Danny Dimes on the waiver wire. This is an interesting three-way dilemma you got here.
I'm going to go with Russ here. Jimmy G and Russ are very close. Dimes to me is a distant third. I just love the matchup. The Titans have been good at stopping the run, weak against the pass, especially downfield. I think this could be one of Russ's better games this season.
I'm going to lean with Jimmy G just because of the wide range of weapons he has. We talked about CMC and Ayuk and Debo and Kittle. There's so many guys for him to get the football to. I think I like that one a little bit more, and maybe a higher scoring game against the Chargers. We'll see. Mac Hollins or Treylon Burks in the flex. Burks is back off injured reserve. Mac Hollins, who's had some decent games this year for the Raiders. Which one do you like more?
I'm going with Mac Hollins there. I think Treylon Burks is a name to stash on your bench right now if you have the spot for him, but Hollins is, him and Devontae Adams are like the only healthy two pass catchers right now for Derek Carr.
I just have to drop Treylon Burks. I'm going to see if I can maybe snag him back up. I just needed to make some space on my roster, and he was sort of clogging it up. So there you go. I think I might go Mac Hollins, by the way, in that one, too, over Treylon Burks. Time now for our favorite flex plays of the week. Florio, who is yours?
One I know you like as well.
Yep.
I'm going to go with Jerry Jeudy here. And I was just saying Russell Wilson because of the matchup, and that's exactly why I like Jerry Jeudy. But don't overlook the fact that Jerry Jeudy was quickly becoming their wide receiver one before their bye week last week. And he's been their best downfield receiver this year, their most effective on passes of 20-plus air yards. And the Titans have allowed by far the most production on those passes, the most yards, the highest passer rating, a bunch of touchdowns as well. Plus, like I said, they're good at stopping the run. And if you're still not sold, they've allowed the third most fantasy points to receivers this year. So if you're not playing Jerry Jeudy this week, when are you going?
This seems like a very good week for Jerry Jeudy. I'm also thinking this is a good week for Antonio Gibson, mostly because with J.D. McKissick banged up and not available, we're seeing Gibson get a lot more of that work in the passing game. Brian Robinson, for as good of a story he's been, has just not played particularly well, especially in the last few weeks. I'm expecting that the Commanders will be playing from behind against this Eagles team, which means you're going to see Gibson on the field, running routes, catching passes as they play catch-up against Philadelphia. So Gibson, to me, has some flex appeal. I guess maybe if you're in a shallower league, a running back too, but I don't know if I would feel quite that confident to do that. But anyway, you can get him in your lineup today. That gets us to Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. We're going to dive into this Browns-Dolphins matchup, looking at the running backs. And according to DraftKings, they project Nick Chubb to rush for 79.5 yards. Where do you have him projected?
I have a huge game projected for Nick Chubb. I'm for 20 fantasy points, 21 carries, 120 rushing yards, and a touchdown. I also have him adding a catch for 10 yards in the passing game. Look, Nick Chubb leads the league with by far the most rushing yards over expectations on runs outside of the tackle. The Miami Dolphins allowed the second most production on those exact carries, and this is a game where I expect, especially early on, the Browns to just force feed Nick Chubb, try to keep Tua and Tyreek Hill in that explosive Dolphins offense on the sideline. Maybe in the second half they have to get away from him a bit, but I think he is going to eat a ton in the first three quarters.
Nick Chubb is going to have a huge game today, I think, against Miami. On the other side, DraftKings projects Raheem Mostert to rush for 46.5 yards. Now, full disclosure, we put this together earlier in the week. I thought Raheem Mostert was going to have a bigger role, so I projected him for 75 rushing rushing yards and a touchdown in this game. And that could certainly still happen because Mostert is explosive. And you heard Cam Wolfe talk about the fact that they still want him as the speed back, the guy who can hit home runs. And so certainly it is in the realm of possibilities for him to get to that 75 yards and a touchdown. But now with word that Jeff Wilson may get a bigger role, the touches could be decreased for Mostert. So it's something to keep an eye on. And I think this week, if we see Jeff Wilson get more snaps and get more touches, then I think we can officially downgrade Raheem Mostert. But at least for one more week, we're going to give him a good shot against a Browns run defense that has not been very good. Get in on the hottest sports action for your shot at cold, hard cash with DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet on your favorite sports all season long and gear up for football season. Right now, new customers can get a special offer when they sign up using promo code WHOSCORES. Time to step away for just a bit, but we still got more to come. Here on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. The Dolphins pre-game huddle. See Jalen Waddle there in the midst of things as they get ready to take on the Cleveland Browns. See if Waddle and Hill can continue to put up big numbers. Raheem Mostert as well. We'll see what he's got. Sunday Fun Day coming up next. Bucks and Seahawks from Munich. Tom Brady with a little throw over the middle to Julio Jones, who does the rest, takes it in from 31 yards away. That put the Bucks up by a score of 7-0 in the second quarter. Good to see Julio back in action and getting in the end zone a couple times in the last few weeks. 14-3 in the fourth quarter. Brady with time there and slings another short touchdown pass to Chris Godwin. That would put the Bucks up by a score of 21-3. Seattle would come back with a couple of late touchdowns, but it would not be enough as Tampa Bay hangs on for a 21-16 win over the Seattle Seahawks in Germany. 15 minutes to kick off now, presented by Geico. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day. Let's take a look at some of the early game injuries that we've been keeping an eye on. Josh Allen looks like he is good to go after talk of the elbow injury all week long. Ryan Tannehill starting for the Titans. Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, both active for the Texans. And Kenny Golladay, after missing time with a knee injury, expected to be active for the New York Giants. It is Sunday Funday time. There it is, waiting for the air horns. We can't proceed until we have air horns. Those are just the rules here. So we talk about some of these superlatives that we are expecting from this Sunday of action. Of course, one game already in the books on Sunday. That's another game in the books from Thursday as well. But let's start with our top scorer today on Sunday. Who will it be?
You're going to have to wait all day for a Sunday night for it, but it's going to be Christian McCaffrey because he is awesome. He's Christian McCaffrey, and he's facing the Chargers, who allow the second most production to running backs all year. They've been torched by the position, especially on outside runs, which is where Christian McCaffrey makes his money. The Chargers have allowed 25 or more fantasy points to a running back in 3 of their last 5 games, and their 5.7 yards per rush this season would be the most in the Super Bowl era. Plus, again, did I say that he's Christian McCaffrey?
You did, and that's good enough of a reason. Between he and Austin Eckler, we got 2 of the top running backs in fantasy on Sunday Night Football. But the top scorer today is actually going to be playing earlier in the day, and that is Saquon Barkley, who has been amazing all year long. The Saquon-assance still very much in effect with what Barkley has done, and he gets the Houston Texans, who are about as forgiving a matchup as you can expect for a running back. You know, the Texans secondary has been pretty tough. It's been tough on passing games, so this might not be a big Daniel Jones opportunity with his arm. So maybe you see Danny Dimes run it a little bit, but that means a lot of insistence and reliance on Saquon Barkley. I'm expecting a huge game from him today against Houston. That gets us to our must-start quarterback of the week. Which signal caller has to be in your lineup?
The only one that was in jeopardy of having to retire this week because he might have had a job in a public office. Tua Tagovailoa, who, got over 17,000 votes down in Florida this week, but he has just been playing great football. 3 passing touchdowns in 2 straight games. He has 3 games this season with over 24 fantasy points. And the thing is, when you're talking about Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins, you're talking about the quarterback a bit, but the real reason is because Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and what those guys could do. But if they're winning downfield and if they're able to take the short to intermediate passes, which Tua is a surgeon on, and go the distance, Tua gets all those points as well.
I don't know how Justin Fields did on ballots in Illinois, but certainly his poll numbers are rising after what he's done the last few weeks. The rushing ability has really stood out, over 400 rushing yards in his last 4 games, but it's made him a more efficient and effective passer as well. You factor all those things in, and you top it off with a matchup against a bad Detroit Lions defense. Justin Fields is in a huge situation here. Love him to smash this week against Detroit. He should absolutely be in a whole lot of lineups there. That gets us to must-start running backs for the week. Who do you like?
I'm going with DeAndre Swift because I just want to make it known again, like earlier in the week, I was worried about him and I told some people to sit him and get away from him. But that's changing. Dan Campbell came out and said, we want to get DeAndre Swift more work. And it makes sense because he's one of the most explosive players in the game, both through the air and on the ground. So if they're getting him the ball, and especially this matchup against the Bears, who really struggle on out wide runs, which is where DeAndre Swift thrives, like, I think you're back to getting Swift in your starting lineup.
Definitely think Swift should be in the starting lineups. And Travis Etienne, who's probably just locked himself into your lineup after the last few weeks, I don't think that's going to change today against the Kansas City Chiefs. This might not be a game where you see Etienne get as many rushing opportunities because I expect Kansas City to go out and score some points on the Jags, but we know he can catch the football effectively. And that's a thing we have not seen a ton of in his game. We know he can do it. We just haven't seen a lot of it in Jacksonville. We could see a lot of it today. It's the reason we like Christian Kirk. It's the reason we like Evan Ingram. Volume will be key because I expect the Jags are going to have to go and be in throw mode fairly early in this one. Speaking of throwing and catching the football, that gets us to our must-start wide receivers. Which is the one you like?
A.J. Brown, because I've just kind of been wanting to talk up A.J. Brown this year to make up for all the weeks we didn't really talk about A.J. Brown. He's been running especially hot as of late with 5 touchdowns in his last 3 games. There was a stretch earlier in the season where he was kind of up and down, but the last few weeks he's good for double-digit fantasy points. A lot of the times like 13, 15-plus fantasy points. And then it's just a great matchup as the Commanders are in the top 10 in fantasy points, yards, all of that allowed to receivers. So I think A.J. Brown, not only is he a must-start every week, but this could be a week where he has a really big game.
Love A.J. Brown. Like Devonta Smith as well this week against the Commanders. I also really like Chris Olave, who is turning out to be the #1 rookie receiver in fantasy football, in part because he is Mr. Air Yards. He still has the game with the most single-game air yards, had over 300 in a game back in week 2, I believe it was. Nobody's come close to that. But more importantly, he's running a diversity of routes, and he is the #1 target there in this Saints offense. So it doesn't really matter that it's been Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston. They are looking in Olave's direction, and a good matchup against a Steelers defense that has struggled all year long. That gets us to our must-start tight ends. We're always looking for tight ends that we must be able to start, and who is one for you?
Zach Ertz, who I don't think gets enough love from the fantasy community because outside of Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz has been the best fantasy tight end this season, and he's been so consistent as well, double-digit fantasy points in all but one game. Like, consistency is the hardest thing to find at the tight end position, and he is giving it to us. I liked him more when it was going to be Kyler Murray playing, but even if it's Colt McCoy, I think we'll see a lot of quick, short throws from McCoy, and those are probably going to go Ertz's way.
Well, I'm going to stay in that same game. I'm going to say Tyler Higbee is a must start because we keep saying it. He's been one of 2 consistently usable pieces in the Rams offense for fantasy. And yeah, I said this earlier in the week, and I got a lot of questions. Do you still believe in him if there's no Matthew Stafford? And yeah, John Wolford, sure, he's not polished necessarily as a starting quarterback, but I think you're going to see Sean McVay scheme up some easy opportunities, some easy throws. We know Cooper Kupp's going to get his, but I still think there is a space for Tyler Higbee to get a lot of work just because you're not going to make it hard on John Wolford. You're not going to have him throwing fades to Allen Robinson in the corner of the end zone. I think Tyler Higbee still has the space to be productive this week. Must start defense. And you and I talked about this defense all week long. It makes me queasy. I don't disagree with the call. It just makes me queasy.
This has nothing to do with the defense. It's all about the matchup. But I think the matchup is that great. It's the Raiders going up against the Indianapolis Colts. And the Colts right now have allowed by far the most sacks in the NFL. They're also struggling with turnovers, and they're scoring the fewest points per game. So your defense is losing the fewest points because of the points given up, and then they're gaining the most points because of the sacks. And then their first-time head coach was doing what we were doing a week ago. So I think there's plenty of reasons to go get the Raiders in your starting lineup.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense, but the Raiders, it makes me nervous. I feel like it's going to backfire. The Saints, though, a defense that I think you can start this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. New Orleans' defense has not been this year what it has been in past years, but I think they're going to be good enough to take advantage of a Steeler offense that has had its issues. They give up a lot of sacks. Kenny Pickett has been a turnover machine since taking over for Mitch Trubisky as the starter there in Pittsburgh. So I think those 2 things sort of work in New Orleans' favor. I don't expect either one of these teams to score a lot of points. In fact, Pittsburgh, one of the lowest scoring teams in the league. So this is a good opportunity to get the Saints defense in as a streamer. That gets us to our bold prediction for Week 10. I need an echo in here. Bold prediction. Bold. Yeah, exactly. So if we're getting crazy this week, what are you thinking about?
So when I said earlier that CMC would be the high scorer, full disclosure was because Marcus beat me to the homework. I agree with Marcus. That's why on Fantasy Live, I said Saquon would have more fantasy points than Daniel Jones has pass attempts. I'm taking it up a notch here. Saquon Barkley, career high 40 fantasy points today. His previous career high was 39.9. Saquon is already top 2 in touches and yards per game, and then the Texans give up by far the most production to the running backs, and they go off against them every single week. Saquon is going to eat today.
So, full disclosure, now Florio talked about Christian McCaffrey as being a high scorer. I don't know if he's the high scorer, but he will be a high scorer. In fact, he and Austin Eckler will combine for at least 60 fantasy points tonight on Sunday Night Football. In case you didn't have enough reason to watch, go check that out. We talked about the Chargers and their run defense being poor. In fact, even Austin Eckler sort of conceded that to us when he was on the NFL Fantasy Football Show earlier in the week. And then Christian McCaffrey, well, he's just Christian McCaffrey. Plus, we know Eckler's going to get a ton of touches. He's the guy who's averaged 30 fantasy points per game since week 4. It's just been bananas. Okay. We had a poll question for you earlier in the show. It was which wide receiver has the toughest matchup today, and Looks like your winner is DeAndre Hopkins going against Jalen Ramsey.
Is he really a winner?
Winner in air quotes there for Nuke Hopkins going against Jalen Ramsey. Should be a good one, though, over at SoFi Stadium between the Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams. Of course, that's not going to stop you from starting DeAndre Hopkins. We hope not. We also appreciate you hanging out with us and watching NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. Enjoy Week 10, everybody. We'll be back to talk to you again next week. Take care.
Takes the snap. Cousins throwing a fade to Dalvin in the end zone, and he caught it! Back left to the end zone! Wow. Touchdown! Way to go, Dalvin!
Now the snap to Josh. Going to keep it and running himself. Left side has a first down and more. Gets inside the 20, inside the 15, headed to the end zone, and he is in. Touchdown.
Takes the snap, fakes the give, rolls, throws back against his body. Intercepted by the Lions. Aiden Hutchinson with a pick. Down into the end zone he goes for a touchback. The rookie out of Michigan comes up with a play.
Snap is back, looking to throw. Fields jumps up in the pocket. Now he's going to have to keep it himself. He runs, he gets the first down to midfield. Away at the 40. Fields to the 30, to the 20. Can he beat the angle? He does. He finishes in the end zone. Touchdown. A Sunday stroll for Justin Fields.
They snap it quickly. They pitch it to the right. This is Etienne. Into the end zone. Touchdown.
Quick snap. They throw it right flat. Hardman in the backfield. Jitterbug move. Stretches out near front pylon. Touchdown. Kansas City.
Play action fake. Brissett scans it, looks it. Peoples-Jones is there. Caught it. He's to the 50. He's to the 45. Hurdles 40, 35, 34, 33. Out of bounds. What a play by DPJ.
Gill, and it's blocked.
Blocked it.
Dolphins got it. They pick it up. Touchdown, Miami. And equal scores the touchdown. The first block of the season.
Here's the snap to Mills. Handoff, Pierce, right side, 40. Mills on the handoff to Pierce. Pierce still going to the right side. Takes it across the 40, and he's out of bounds. What a run.
Handoff, Barkley. Lowers his shoulder left, and he's in for the touchdown. And Barkley scores from a yard out. His 5th rushing touchdown of the season. Dalton to throw. Looking. Throws to the near side. That's caught by Chris Olave at the 15-yard line and steps out of bounds. First down for Chris Olave at the 15.
Jet motion. Chase has it and he throws it for a touchdown. Chase was handed off on the jet sweep right to left. He spotted Derek Watt, and the Steelers march it 75 yards and score.
Henry on the right side, 30, 40, 50, 40, 30, and he is taken down from behind inside the 25-yard line.
Pitch it to Judy, trying to get there, and he does. Wilson to Jerry Judy, and the Broncos are on the board.
Ellinger to throw, pump fakes, going to take off and run. 25, 30, 35, 40, and he's out of bounds at the 45-yard line, runs out of bounds.
Carr, shotgun, lobs one, near side, Adams over his shoulder, makes the grab at the 5, walks into the end zone. Touchdown Raiders, have a quarter, Devontae.
Handoff, Pollard coming left, foot in the ground, first down and more, 50. Good block from the tight end, sideline, keep running, 10, 5, touchdown, Tony Pollard.
Play action, back to throw. Goff in the pocket, wings it over the left side, intercepted. Jair Alexander, he's to the 40, cutting it back left, makes the turn to the Detroit 35, to the 30, he's to the 25 and angled out of bounds.
Snap to Smith, he's going to throw. And he tried to dump it off. It's picked up at the 30 on the near side by Collins. Running it back to the left to the 20, the 10. Touchdown! Saving Collins.
High snap Stafford. He spears it. Throws down the seam. Cooper Kupp at the tip of a 40. Now the 20. Right side 10. 5. Touchdown Cooper Kupp. Touchdown LA.
Smith. Running out of time. And time runs out. Joe Tryon Shoyinka with the sack. In sole possession going into their bye week. Tom Brady. Play action. Throws over the middle for Evans. And it's a nice grab for the all-time leader in receiving and so much more for the Bucs. Brady flings it wide open. Julio Jones. Julio Jones trying to score. Touchdown. Fournette, touchdown.
Whoa.
It's now a 55-yard attempt. Myers from 55 out. He got it. Brady throws. Caught. Godwin. And that was on Tariq Woolen. They're throwing at the rookie. Here's Fournette.
Brady
in the direct snap. Fournette. He is going to throw it to Brady. Oh, and Brady slips it and picked up by Tariq Woolen. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Oh, boy.
The Bucs were moving, and a flag comes out at the end of the play. Smith is going to run it himself. He's running out of time instead. He fumbled it. Ball's loose. And the Bucs recover.
Wow.
White. Nice patience, and he's free. Rachaad White, one man to beat, and he shoves him down. He just threw Diggs out of the club here in Munich. Gain of 28. It's White in there again, in motion. Brady looks his way, looks the other way, and it's a touchdown. Chris Godwin. Three scores. Can they get one in the end zone here? Smith stepping up. Over the middle. Lockett. Touchdown. Seattle had to have it. And they got it with 8:20 to go. First touchdown of the game for the Seahawks.
Smith keeping your eyes down the field and making a big play.
And they're going to go for two here. One of the most meaningful snaps. Period. 6.5 to go. Brady picked off by Cody Barton. What a huge interception. Smith completes it to Lockett. Smith keeps it. Thrown in the air again for the end zone. It's caught. Touchdown. Marquise Goodwin. What a throw on 4th and 1.
And what a throw. Looked like he was coming out trying to get the underneath one. Pressure in his face. Lays it out there for his receiver who extends.
That's a touchdown. Brady hands it off to White. Nice run for White. Picks up the first down. Rachaad White. By the way, that's exactly how Tom Brady snaps it. They're still singing. Look at this for Rachaad White. As the fans are singing John Denver. I just want to thank you three guys for being part of this experience. I want to thank our producer, Mark Titleman, our director, Greg Scopatoni.
Patriots for so long. Now it's coming in here.
Oh, onside kick to start it. And the Jags have recovered, I believe.
Of course, as we're talking, you're not kidding. This is amazing. What a call.
Riley Patterson, the kicker, executing it to perfection, and he recovered it as well. Doug Peterson comes back to Kansas City, former offensive coordinator here, and calls for the onside kick. Remember, the Chiefs won the toss and wanted the football, and they got caught napping to open the game.
Well, guess what? Heath Farwell, there's Doug Peterson. The student becomes...
That's a scary, long day for the Lions.
He'll run on first down. A scary start for the Lions as Fields motors across midfield before he's ushered out by Kirby Joseph. What a start. 28 yards on the Fields run.
Well, watch him just read the end here on the left side of the screen. Boom, the end's going to crash. Justin Fields knows what to do. Those couple steps right there from Okwara. And Justin Fields knows he can catch the corner on just about anybody. Even those athletic defensive ends, they don't stand a chance against number one.
First and goal. Brissett going to throw it again. This side, end zone, touchdown. Harrison Bryant, the tight end. Kevin Stefanski couldn't ask for any better start to this game.
Yeah, they're going to sneak him behind the line of scrimmage, really play and force the Miami Dolphins to keep their eyes on their guy. That's a tough play when you're down by the goal line.